Welcome to this episode of the Freedom Seeker Show. Today we are talking with Lindsay Youngblood, wife and mother of two handsome boys. Lindsay is a freedom seeker who decided a few years ago to leave from her 9-to-5 into realty and home staging while raising her boys and a ton of other things. Lindsay will talk to us about the tough transition between finding a new schedule and a new rhythm from your corporate job to being a business owner. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for having coffee on the patio with Yvonne on this gorgeous day again. As you can see, we changed location too. Rearranged some furniture with staging queen over here.
Surprising that within 10 minutes of my being here, we've rearranged her furniture.
Not surprising at all. Love it. We're going to test this out. What we're trying to achieve is that we are looking good while
staying cool.
Staying cool, exactly. Yeah. So I invited Lindsay to have this chat with us today to talk about transitioning from a 9-to-5 to self-employment. You're a mother of two young boys, 2 and 5.
2 and 5.
You are a wife.
Yes.
And a multi-entrepreneur.
Yes.
So
sounds like so much when you lay it out like that.
Well, I thought about that yesterday when I was preparing for that because, you know, you do so many different things. Making most of your income, I guess, with your realty and your staging business. But that said, what really came to me was what triggered you to go there when you think about having 2 young kids at home and your husband is also self-employed, to give up that security of like a steady paycheck?
Well, the main driving force was the actual lack of security in that I was laid off. So that was a huge driving force. But I never at any point pictured myself retiring in the corporate world. I think I always envisioned something bigger for myself, and the being laid off was just simply the catalyst that sort of forced me into it. Perhaps had I had more time to sit and think about it and hadn't really had that push, I probably would have sat and waited longer, because having young kids, you know, you are busy and it's time consuming to start a business. So the thought of doing it at this time in my life probably wouldn't have come about, but I have no regrets because it's been a hell of a ride. Yeah. And a lot of learning and a lot of patience out of my family, but it's been good.
So that's exactly what I want to talk about today, because, you know, we both have now transitioned officially from our 9-to-5 to being self-employed. And this conversation came about over some drinks when we realized that there are so many things we had to overcome, and they were very similar. So we figured, you know what, let's talk about this to share it with you guys, because there may be someone out there that as well right now is kind of on that edge of wanting to leap into self-employment and not quite sure if they have what it takes or what to expect, right? Yeah. But what we can cushion a bit is the what to expect. What were some of the obstacles? What was the challenges, and how did we overcome that? So why don't you share a little bit about you and what, if you can think of it, what was your biggest piece when you started your own?
Well, I'm going to equate it to having kids, because when you have children, or you're planning on having children, or you think you might want to have children, a lot of people will say to you, don't bother waiting for the right time, because there's no such thing as the right time. Yeah. You will never be more prepared than you are in this moment. Yeah. And you do it, and you learn as you go, and it's all one big learning process. There's really no preparation until you're in it. And it's exactly the same. I mean, you can overthink it to death and scare yourself out of doing it, and you just have to take the leap and go for it.
Let's tackle maybe the biggest one that we both were affected by, which is the paycheck. right? So you have
Yeah.
your consistent paycheck, and now all of a sudden you dive into self-employment, and all of a sudden, the first couple weeks are okay because you still have some overlap, and then all of a sudden nothing lands in your bank account.
Yeah.
And we had to learn to rely on our spouses, which I know for me was a big challenge, and you shared with me that it was for you as well, having been very independent.
Yeah.
So
That's definitely a mental game, more so than anything, because, yeah, as you said, both being very independent, having our own income and even our own place, our own apartments and condos beforehand, and then suddenly, you've got a joint mortgage that you're relying on you're supposed to pay, and groceries that need to be bought, and all that stuff. So it's good to have those conversations, of course, up front, if that's the situation you're in, if it's going to be a little bit of time before you get, your business becomes profitable. So if you're going to be in that position, then have those frank conversations with your spouse or your partner, and make sure that you're on the same page, and
that the expectations are actually understood on each side, right?
Exactly. So it's never something you necessarily want to be in, maybe, but it can be necessary, and it's not as bad as long as you're having those conversations, and God bless our supportive partners for putting up with the beginning phases, because it's challenging, but
like I don't want specifics per se, but how long did it take you until you felt like, okay, I'm in a groove here, I'm understanding what my outgoing expenses are, what my incoming revenues are, like how long did that take you before you felt somewhat in control?
I think I'm still in it.
Yeah,
it's been over a year, and my first year, reflecting back, I've been trying to identify periods of growth and periods of where my business is more stagnant. But 1 year is a difficult benchmark to go off of, right? So I feel like I'm gaining momentum, but I don't really have a good feel yet where I can confidently predict the patterns. So I think it's still in progress.
Yeah, like once way back in university when we talked about business ownership and business management, the said number that they always gave us to guide was always 3 years. 3 years to at least hang in there for 3 years to give it a fair shot.
Right.
A business takes that momentum of taking off, and then finding its groove, I guess.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to hear that you're feeling the momentum, because I think that's always the most discouraging piece of it. Is when you're just going and you're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Let's tackle one of the things that was also very predominant for both you and I. We are very independent and we work very independently. We were never people that needed to be micromanaged. We know what we need to do and we get it done. But yet we both struggled with this lack of structure, So the way I was describing it was that it took me a long time to get used to or comfortable, and most importantly, not feeling guilty about getting up in the morning and, checking my emails and having coffee with Den, instead of rushing to get out of the house to get into traffic to go to an office. And that took me a long time to really find my okayness with that. How did you find that?
Well, when you realize that, and you realize that you are essentially undoing years worth of guilt for freedom, we're basically hardwired to believe that, we need to be where we're supposed to be and not where we necessarily want to be. And, the mindset of, you need to go to your job in order to be able to finally earn the right to enjoy a vacation, for example. So, I think just identifying that giving yourself the freedom is, it's a right, it's
It
not
is.
something that you need to feel guilty for.
Yeah.
And reminding yourself that you are doing things during your day that are driving your business and things that are important to your livelihood. You're not just sitting on your butt doing nothing. So those moments where you do have that freedom, that's deserved freedom. And I mean, as you know, an entrepreneur doesn't ever stop working.
No.
You're working around the clock. You're
Yeah.
even thinking of ideas while you're falling asleep on how to drive your business. So when you quantify that, you're actually working a hell of
All
a
the
lot more
time.
than you probably ever would
Yeah.
in your corporate 9 to 5. Most people shut their mind off at the end of the day, go home, and that's it. And we don't really have that luxury.
That off button.
Yeah,
No, we don't.
So,
You're absolutely right.
So, you have to remember that you're constantly driving your business, whether you're physically doing the activities or you're just brainstorming while you're having that coffee in the morning. That's all business activities.
So how do you find balance? 2 kids, a husband, two businesses of your own, one business your husband has.
Yeah.
So how does that work?
A lot of people talk about time management. I talk about energy management, where I try to quantify the energy that I'm spending on certain things. So I've become better and better, and I hope to get even better at managing where I'm spending my energies. So to me, obviously, putting energy into my kids and my family is very important, but also energy into my business. But I try to manage it in a way where I'm not spending too much energy on tasks that aren't going to gain me something in return. So a lot of it that's helped me has been streamlining business processes and getting myself slightly more automated so that I do have time to spend those energies on more important and sometimes more desirable tasks.
I love that. I love how you are giving it you're reframing it. You're giving it a whole different concept. It's not about time, it's about energy.
Yeah.
Because time, we all have the same amount of time, right? But if we are using that time effectively, then we'll have more energy for the quality time that we want to spend with our families. So love that.
Yeah.
Well, how are you automating it?
Well, just, with my my client database, auto emails, drip campaigns, making sure that my business is prepared for things, right? I'm trying to be more proactive than reactive in just how my business is operating. So approaching my clients with things that I think they'll need before they come to me for those things, and doing it in a time that works for me versus when they come to me and it needs to be done right now.
No,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So if I can try to anticipate things, which of course is going to make you better in customer service anyways.
Completely.
So by doing that, I'm A, becoming a better professional, and B, I'm able to spend my time and my energy when I want to spend it on those tasks versus on their time.
I love that. So where did that come from? Did you, anyone you follow in specific that kind of gave you some nudges into that direction, or is that just something that comes naturally to you?
Well, I guess part of the benefit of coming from a corporate background has been the constant push to work on efficiencies.
Yeah.
And a big part of my job previously was identifying processes that needed to be reworked to become more efficient. So
when you were a project manager.
Exactly. So that, that's just kind of hardwired into me. So, I constantly just have this analytical view of things and say, how can we do this better? How can it be more efficient? And how can I make it so that I'm not spending so much time on these smaller tasks? And as a result, it just makes everybody's lives easier.
Yeah.
So I tend to just look at my business and even my home life in that way. Just, how can I improve this whole process? Because I don't like to spend time on things that I know can be done faster or more efficiently.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, you're a very good organizer. Very good organizer.
Some days.
Yeah. Well, considering 2 kids, we talked about it when you arrived, certain things we can't control, right? It is Monday. It feels like Monday through and through. You slept in, kids slept in, everyone was cranky. Those things we can't control. But what we can control is how we're going to react to it and what we're going to make of it anyways, right? Do you have any specific tips for us of something that like worked really well for you that you're like, oh man, this changed my game?
Well, one thing in terms of time management and energy management that has been working, and it's still a work in progress and probably will be forever, has been trying to understand how much time I spend on certain tasks and creating basically a daily schedule for myself, like routines.
Okay.
I find that it helps me to really plan out my day so I'm maximizing the time that I do have.
Yeah.
So it was trial and error basically. I would start by identifying certain tasks that I needed to accomplish in the day.
Yeah.
And I would set time limits for them.
Yeah.
And then I would basically mark myself. So I would check my watch when I started a certain task, work through the task, complete it, and then check my watch and see how long it actually took me versus how long I thought it would take me.
Perfect.
And I was surprisingly accurate. And, obviously day to day things change, but to have kind of that benchmark in your mind, it really helps with time management because then you're surprised at how much you can actually accomplish in a day. Whereas a task you might in the back of your mind think, okay, I need 2 hours to do that. It might actually only take you, an hour and a half. And that extra half hour can be either spent having coffee or on another task, whatever, you have the choice, but at least you have that ability to manage your time.
I love that.
More effectively.
I've never done that, but I relate to what you just said, whereas like certain tasks I would think they're going to take me forever.
Yeah.
And then ultimately they will because I procrastinate on them for so long.
Yeah,
right?
because you think it's going to take so long.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I love that. I'm going to use that. I'm going to try that out.
Obviously sometimes days go completely crazy and can be totally unpredictable, but it does help you.
And then do you have different days, do you time block? So
to an extent.
To an extent.
Yeah.
So do you have different days of the week or maybe times during the day where you dedicate to, like, say, active learning versus being proactive in your business with regards to promotional stuff? Like, do you have that organized as well? Or
So the tasks basically fall within those kinds of categories, right? So, for example, in my morning, I have my morning routine where I spend time reflecting on my business and then going through and I do, my gratitudes and I write notes to, my clients, or whoever, that certain day. And then, from there I have blocks of time where it's directed at research, learning, that kind of thing. And then within those, headings, it'll be different tasks on any given day kind of thing.
I've been playing with that myself. And of course, and I'm sure you agree, it takes some playing around and trying it out, right? Because
trial and error.
Yeah. There is no one set rule to follow. You can just try different systems, take some advice from various people that have tried things, and then make it your own.
And some days it all goes to crap.
I love that. I love that you say that because it's so true. I'm so hard on myself most days, and it doesn't work out just the way I had planned it.
No. And it's all learning, and it's all, but to have the guideline, I find, there's some days where I wake up and I am motivated. I am ready to do whatever it takes. And I am so motivated that I can't even focus on what I need to do to harness that motivation. I feel like I'm just, spinning around going, there's so many things I could do today. I could do this and I could do that and I could do this. And then you get overwhelmed and then you do nothing.
Yep.
And so at least if you have that to fall back on, you can just go back and say, okay, just one step at a time, let's do some tasks, and keep you focused. That was a challenge for me going from the 9-to-5 to the entrepreneur because some people need direction on time management. Yeah. And that was me. I could do my work, no problem, but sometimes I like to have the deadlines and I like to have the, I knew I had to have certain reports done on a certain day by a certain time, and I always got that done. But with in this business, you don't always have someone there saying you need to have, your marketing stuff done this day. You need to post, on social media on this day by this time. And so if you don't have that and it's a task that might not be your favorite, you just procrastinate.
Totally.
Don't do it.
I'm working on the outsourcing piece of that. You know, like identifying the things that A, I don't enjoy doing, and B, that I may not be very good at doing, or take a lot of my time.
And that comes down to the energy management.
Yeah, exactly. Because it does drain, and those tasks that I don't want to do, they're going to drain me more than anything else, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Really great tips. I love the way you talk about the energy versus time management. Yeah.
And also, it's important, of course, in those days to put in your time for yourself as well, right? I mean, on whatever that is.
And then that.
Don't forget about that stuff.
No kidding. Okay, so how do you manage that? Because I would imagine that once your day job is done with your staging or your realty, now you have your kids.
Yeah.
So when do you make time for yourself?
It's usually during the day.
Yeah?
Yeah. So when they're at day home or whatever, during the day, I tend to use the mornings because I find it easier to, I don't want to say get it out of the way, but then, I have the morning where I haven't quite delved into work yet. I have a tendency when I start something business related, I have difficulty shutting that down and going into doing something strictly for myself and then going back into business. So, I do my workouts first thing in the morning. I do my meditation first thing in the morning. I do my gratitude first thing in the morning. And then I feel like I'm, centered and cleared and balanced, and I can get into work and then harness all the positivity from those things. You've gotten your adrenaline going, your endorphins are going, and you're clear-minded and focused. So for me, that's worked the best. Plus, it just happens to work out as well that with real estate, most stuff doesn't happen until afternoon to evening. So
like the networking part of it, or the
networking and client meetings, and not a lot of clients are eager to see houses at 8 a.m.
But you know what? This is interesting because this speaks to what we talked about, the structured setting that we are used to from our 9 to 5, right? Like you arrive at work for 8:30 and then you leave at 4:30. That is a big challenge it was for me to rearrange the times and to acknowledge it doesn't have to be. And I loved how you said that in the beginning. It's just we've spent years and years and years of conditioning ourselves, even in school, right? Like, I mean, you start school at a certain time and you leave at a certain time.
Yeah.
Whereas now the time is ours to create with however we want it to work for us.
Yeah.
And that was, for me, was a big challenge, and I'd like to tap onto something or ask you something on that. It's so the way my mind works is, same as you. I do best in the mornings to do my meditation, do my workouts. But then there are mornings when I wake up and it was like one of those nights where my brain would not shut off going with ideas. Like I'm in that creative, like I feel like I'm tapped in and there's like download is happening, right? And I wake up and like the first thing I want to do is get working, get onto my computer. Have you ever experienced that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So do you just like forget about the meditation and the workout and go and do that, get it out of your system? Or do you bring yourself to still follow your morning routine?
Well, admittedly, I have. There's definitely been days where I just hit my keyboard, straight away. And like I said, that goes back to the whole idea that not every day is going to follow your routine, and some days you're, the core of you tells you that this is what you need to do right now. You need to harness that moment of inspiration. And, there's definitely been days where I've done that and I've promised myself, okay, I'll get to the gym this afternoon, or I'll, do my other stuff later on. And sure enough, it doesn't happen. But you know what? It's a constant growing process. Yeah. And it's never going to go 100% the way that you want it to. But for me, I try not to be too hard on myself, because at the end of the day, you're just doing what you feel you need to do in the moment. I have had days as well where, I'll wake up having ideas or gone to bed with ideas, and I'll wake up and just make a few notes to come back to and then continue on with my routine. do all that kind of stuff, and then come back focused and sit down with those ideas and maybe vet them and maybe expand on them or whatever. So, you know, it kind of depends on how I'm feeling. If I'm feeling like I need to handle this right now, well, go for it, you know? Your world isn't going to fall apart if you don't do that
and
every
I think
single day.
it also depends on the nature of whatever your business is, right? Like, for example, right now I'm spending a lot of my time creating, and I find I can't ignore when the creative space is there.
Yeah.
I can't ignore that because I'm not always feeling creatively motivated to write or to do whatever it is I want to do. So I really want to take advantage of it. So I love how you said to not be so hard on myself and to just, okay, so fine, it didn't work out that I went for a workout this morning.
Yeah.
I'll make the most of it, and maybe I'll go for a walk in the afternoon instead, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a challenge sometimes, especially when you don't have someone else keeping you accountable. Sometimes when you feel like you've maybe gone off of your path that you've created for yourself, then you're your own worst critic, and you have to be kind to yourself too, right? You have to understand that, you know, you're just kind of going with what you need to do in that moment.
Yeah. Speaking of accountability, do you belong to any type of mastermind or networking group or?
No, not at the moment. I've actually been getting in with mentorship group, but they haven't reconvened after the summer yet, so waiting on that. But it's definitely something that's worthwhile.
Yeah, I feel so too. So tell us a little bit about why staging and real estate.
Well, staging because I love decorating. And it basically got to a point in my life where I was buying decorative stuff and furniture and rearranging my house so much that I just one day said to myself, I need to be doing this for a living, because I'm going to get divorced if I keep bringing home more furniture with no real reason. So it just, a light bulb went off, and I said to myself, this is obviously something that I love to do. So I should be doing this for a living. So that's kind of where that came from. The real estate also, similar thing. You know, I've always loved real estate. I'm one of those people that will spend hours on realtor.ca just looking at properties and talking about possibilities and all that kind of thing. So, you know, it just was natural.
Well, and you and Jer too, you spend quite a lot of time doing your own rebuilding, redevelopment of houses and then flipping them. So you really do know what you're talking about when it comes to that, because you've done it. Yeah. You know, you've been on all the budget crunches and all of the, like, I think I've never met anyone like you who is just so fantastic at researching out good deals, but with that finite understanding of when to spend the money and where you can save money. You know, and that is a quality that you have that I take advantage of all the time, because, you know, whether it was my wedding dress or, you know, just redoing our office space here, I'm like, Lindsay, can you please help?
Well, it all comes back to doing what you love, right? And I do love what I do, so it's when you find yourself doing it in your free time, you know it's something worth doing all the time. So no regrets there. I love it.
It's true, because when we bought the condo, I remember me messaging, it was like stupid 8 or 9 o'clock at night, and you're still like messaging me about it, and I'm like, don't you want to like go to bed or spend some time with your family and something? You're like, no, this is actually what I enjoy doing right now. And they're already sleeping, so this is what I'm doing. So
if I have a choice between that and Netflix, I'm probably going to choose that.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I feel you on this. So I love what you're doing. I absolutely think you've definitely found your calling. You're very good at it. And I loved the tips that you had on transitioning from a 9 to 5. Perhaps as we like stop the recording, we'll probably think of 1,000 other things we could have brought to your attention. But what I'll say is this: if you enjoyed this, maybe you can come back.
I will always come back.
Awesome.
Yes.
So we'll have you back, and maybe we can talk a little bit more. Maybe some of our viewers will actually post some questions that they have for us on how to do this. So I'll have to have you back.
Welcome both.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Lindsay.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Thank you, Lindsay, for your amazing tips on your transition from your 9-to-5 to being an entrepreneur and new business owner. Are you a new business owner as well? If so, I want to hear from you. What are your toughest challenges at the moment? Go to my website, YvonneWinkler.com, and leave me a message. Look forward to hearing from you. Until next time, keep on rocking, and thanks for watching.